Oh, yeah, that should be going live, baby. We should be up and ready to go. Polly, getting a polly going. Only 2, 3 hours late. No problem. Ow, my head. Do. When you think. Boom, boom. Hi, Marvel Avengers. I am streaming. I have a polly now. Hey, Sharky4978 finally caught a stream. Today. This is poll. Don't get used to it, Sharky. This is not the normal time for the streams. I'm just late as fuck. To the point where I'm like screwed late. I slept really late and I have a headache. And it sucks. Which is why the episode, Brew, whatever, is called Determinator. Because I'm doing it anyway. Now that might not extend to actually recording a real thing today, and it might. I'm not sure yet. But the promise is doing the fucking brew. And I'm gonna do the fucking brew. And I've got a pain that's not, it's not right behind the center. It's right off to the side, right here. It's not in the neck either, which is really balls. It's in my brain. Ah. So it's probably the ocular centers being overstressed or something. Man, I really killed that fucking oatmeal. That's awesome. Plant-based milks, a little bit of protein, some goji berries, some cacao nibs, plenty of peanut butter, some super finely shredded coconut to add a little bit more fat and fiber, a little bit of almond meal as well to add a little bit more fat and fiber. Wow. Mm-hmm. I'm going to first say Hibiki Tachibana. Hibiki Tachibana is my favorite shonen protagonist. But what I'd like to know from you guys is, who's the best shonen protagonist? Well, not the best, but who's the one that's most resonant with you? The one that jumps to mind immediately. When you hear shonen protagonist or Determinator or anything along those lines, who do you think of? Who leaps to mind? Who hops into being? I don't know. You're gonna have to tell me. So why the fuck is that? Why is there this black bar at the top? Do you guys see a black bar at the top of the screen? Because my screen settings are correct. Yeah, it's just there no matter what. That's super weird. And then the other thing that I'd like to do today for today's purposes is I've pulled up a few poems. And I'd like to read through a couple of them. By way of, you don't see a black bar? Okay, so maybe it's just on the live settings on my end, that it shows that. So at least my framing isn't totally busted broken. No black bar here, Leonie. Thank you. I appreciate you guys for letting me know. My poem. I think it's this one. Yeah. Aim for the moon, no looking back. Sing it, I'm strong. I am the decider. I am all the reasons. An animal. I am every season. I am legends all because of you. Do it for... So where the fuck is... Man, I thought I had a browser window for comments. In fact, I know I did. Aim for the moon. No looking. Okay, that would be the comments one. So this one needs to be called comments. Hold on. Rename. Comments. Sorry, I'm ignoring all of you for a moment while I get that set. And there we go. That's set. Back to all of you. Where are all of you? Where are you at? Where are you? Oh, you're right there, and nothing has changed, and nobody has commented anything, and nobody's gone to the poll and done anything. Hey, go do the poll thing. Help me. Oh wait, they have. I refreshed it. Never mind. Sorry, I just hadn't seen it. Naruto, Luffy. Yep. Tanjiro, Gintoki. Gintoki's a good answer. Hinata Shoujo is a classic, man. Holy shit. By Orange, by Studio Orange. Absolutely. Son fucking Goku, says Moon. I hard agree. Kazuma, True Gender Equality. You mean Kazuma from Konosuba, right? I don't fully get the true gender equality part. I watched like one episode of Chainsaw Man, and that's the extent of my shonen. There's no way. There's no way that's true. There's no way that's true. You've seen other shonen protagonists. You obviously have. You have to have. There's no way you haven't. Naruto? Tanjiro? No. Okay, well, I'm going to turn my attention to poetry. Just for funsies. This be the verse by Philip Larkin. They fuck you up, your mom and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. They fill you with the faults they had and add some extra just for you. But they were fucked up in their turn by fools in old-style hats and coats, who half the time were soppy stern and half at one another's throats. Man hands on misery to man, it deepens like a coastal shelf. Get out as early as you can, and don't have any kids yourself. So, there's a cynicism to this last set of lines. It's all darkness from here, and it doesn't contain the joyous revelations, and it's meant not to, as far as I can tell by Larkin. Because this is not a poem about get out as early as you can, which is to say die, and don't have any kids. It's a poem about the inevitability of passing on hardship, and that you need to be aware of it so that you do less of it. And to me, it's a poem about forgiving your parents for their sins and failures. And when I say sin, sin isn't evil. Sin is aiming at the mark and missing it. It's an attempt. That's pretty useful. Saitama, I would not consider Saitama a shonen protagonist. I mean, I would not. Very different. I forget who Shigeo Kageyama is. Who's that? Oh, that's Mobu. Yeah, okay. Mobu, I could see. Midoriya, yep. Yuji Itadori. Tiabu. Person calling yourself Tiabu? No. Hard no. Well, I can't actually kick you. That's hilarious. Have you ever tried to write your own poem, like when you did your own rap? I've written dozens of poems, man. I've thrown them all away. I don't have any need for them because they haven't been good enough. If I ever write one that I think I want to share with the world, I will. But dozens and dozens of poems. I'm quite good at it. At least according to my teachers and professors. I can spin out poems in an instant. I read a poem to you guys the other day. Or I wrote a poem the other day. I wrote it for a cute girl via the Tindors. Let me grab it. This is almost a poem. It's not really a poem. This is just a part of a self-expression that I was going for. I am armed with the Father's dual scissor blade of known and unknown, order and chaos, self and other, and I wield it to divide the world in true. I am armored in the Mother's cloak of stars, shielded from contempt by compassion, insulated from isolation by connection, and warded against despair by dream. That kind of thing. But where is my, I am man poem? Oh, there it is. I sent it to this redhead girl who described herself in her profile as something like a seven-headed aspect of the void. And let me go actually, I think I can find her profile fairly easily. Ichigo Kurosaki in Bleach. No, I believe it. I understand. Ichigo's not a bad protagonist, and Bleach is not a bad story. It just falls apart at the end. Or closer to the end. Basically, it runs out of steam at Aizen. Like 180 episodes in, it just runs out of fucking steam. Let me see. There. Person calls herself Nil. Hers is anime. Hers is God complex and daddy issues. I don't play the game. I crafted the pieces. Manic pixie dream girl meets seven-headed serpentine void. Mastered the deceptively complex art of dissociation, perverse eccentricities, and a pulsating need to being bested at my own game. So, your move. Multidimensional entities bound to rock and flesh need apply. We conjure creatures between the sheets. To him, highly trained, never free. The one before has vanished. I know you're coming. Here I am. Rook d6. Check. And then her interests are metaverses and slam poetry. So I was like, well, I'm going to write her a poem because that seems right. And I did. And I have not gotten a response, which is sad, but I am happy about the poem. The poem that I wrote was this one. I call it I Come to Claim. And it's a response to her profile. I come to claim. I am man, oak tree rooted, cast of iron, carved of stone. I've been out here slaying dragons, building cities from their bones. I have no want for land or castle, gave it up so I could roam. But I lack not for sup or supper, those in need lend me their home. Found my way and lost it dearly, hurt myself and others true. Now I see through a glass clearly a path to heaven, on it you. I am not the one you're seeking, but in his image I am made. I can't tell you where I'm going, I can only show the way. So I ask you, flame-haired Gorgon, she has red hair. Flame-haired Gorgon, take my hand, come with me, say that you'll be mine and I'll be yours, beast divine and holy whore, devour me, give life once more. Then pedal to metal, foot to floor, we fly the coop, break through the door, and give time the slip, and live once more, each other's eyes, each other's all. Look into mine, and we'll both fall apart together. I'm ready. Are you? And nope. No dice there, which is sad, but that's the way of the world, and I'm not terribly saddened by it. Difference slam poetry. It's a competitive art event. The technical is just a performance poem. Have you ever seen a slam poem? Have you ever seen like a really serious one? Let's just do that. Well, I'll just do that. Slam poetry. 4 million views. Grand Slam poetry champion Henry Baker. Neil Heilborn, probably pretty dank. Explaining my depression to my mother. Touchscreen. Probably touchscreen is pretty good. This is probably gonna hurt. I'm down for that. Let's go, Marshall Davis Jones. Kick my ass, dude. Marshall Soulful fucking Jones. Let's go. English teachers showing this to their students? Good. That's how it should be. Let me put this into the YouTube version, the thing that's made for this. I think it's this one. Great. Let's check it out. This is a slam poem. I don't know what this one's about. I'll bet it's pretty good, though. A couple million people think it's pretty good, so.
Introducing the new Apple iPerson complete with multi-touch and volume control. Doesn't it feel good to touch? Doesn't it feel good to touch? Doesn't it feel good to touch? My world is so digital that I have forgotten what that feels like.
Popping, locking,
it used
roboting.
to be hard to connect when friends formed cliques, but it's even more difficult to connect now that cliques form friends.
Whoa.
But who am I to judge? I face Facebook more than books face me, hoping to book face-to-faces. I update my status, 420 space to prove I'm still breathing. Failure to do this daily means my whole web-wide world will forget that I exist. But with 3,000 friends online, only 5 I can count in real life. Why wouldn't I spend more time in the world where there are more people that like me? Wouldn't you? Here, it doesn't matter if I'm an amateur person as long as I have a profile. My smile is 50% genuine and 50% genuine HD. You would need Blu-rays to read the whites of my teeth, but I'm not that focused. 10 tabs open, hoping my problems can be resolved, but a 1600 by 1700 revolution. This is a problem with this evolution doubled over.
1600
we
by
used to
900.
sit in treetops till we swung down to stand upright, then someone slipped a disc. Now we're doubled over at desktops. From the Garden of Eden to the branches of Macintosh, apple picking has always come at a great cost. iPod, iMac, iPhone, iChat, I can do all of these things without making eye contact. We used to sprint to pick in-store Blackberries. Now we run to the Sprint store to pick Blackberries. It's scary. I can't hear the sound of Mother Nature speaking over all that tweeting. And along with it is our ability to feel as it's fleeting. You would think these headphone jacks inject in the flesh the way we connect the disconnect power on. So we are powerless. They got us love drugged like e-pills. So we e-trade, email, emotion like e-commerce because now money can buy love for $9.95 a month. Click to proceed to checkout. Click to X out where our hearts once were. Click, I've uploaded this hug. I hope she gets it. Click, I'm making love to my wife. I hope she's logged in. Click, I'm holding my daughter over a Skype conference call while she's crying in the crib in the next room. Click, so when my phone goes off on my hip, I touch and I touch and I touch because in a world where there are voices that are only read and laughter is never heard, I'm so desperate to feel that I hope the technology can reverse the universe until the screen can touch me back. And maybe it will when our technology is advanced enough to make us human again.
So, I used to be in speech and debate. I never did extemp or shoot, I forget what the other specifically speech variant was, but I had a number of friends who did, and I went and I watched their competitions, and it's crazy because often those are held in high school campuses, sometimes college campuses, and you'll just be in a classroom with like 25 people, some of them like adults and judges and other competitors and shit, all just sitting at their desks, at different desks in the classroom. And the competitor just gets up in front of the classroom and spits like that. And just goes with a pre-prepared, planned out, seriously thought through performance. And you get like 10 or 12 of those into your brain, and it's just like, oh. Because often the people who are doing them, the children, the teenagers, write them themselves. And so it's a fantastic way to get in touch with the beautiful minds that are out there, because it's shocking how incredibly talented humans can be. It's fantastic. Okay, over to the list. Tanjiro at the top. Naruto, Luffy, Goku, Gon, Gintoki, Hinata, Mob, Deku, Arararagi. Yeah, he's such a meta protagonist. That doesn't work. Jotaro super doesn't work for me, man. My cock bruv, the best protagonist. Really leading the way. Really forging a new path. Yusuke Urameshi. Yep, a classic. I forget who Maka Albarn is. Who's that? Oh, from Soul Eater. Yeah, I'd buy that. I'd believe it. I mean, hey, I did put... fuck, where'd I put her? Wait, what happened? Did I not put Hibiki? I put Hibiki first thing. It was actually the first thing that I did. What the fuck? Hibiki Tachibana. There we go. The manga adaptation for Monogatari is classified as... I don't give a fuck. I don't give a shit what labels people put on things. People are stupid and the labels they use are often wrong. Who cares? Monogatari is not shonen. It's meta shonen, if anything. And it's not even meta shonen, it's meta harem. Fucking no. Absolutely not. Now, in the broad scope of being aimed at young to adolescent men, sure, fine. But as far as the genre category classification of shonen goes, not at all. In no way, shape, or form. I regret not being in debates in high school days. Yep. If your kids get the chance, put them into speech and debate class. The ability to speak is the most potent tool in the world. Up there with programming. Maybe better. Maybe better. Well, I'll take a moment now to do this. I'm just going to look at the news. Hold on. One sec. Newsy thingy. Flip, flip, flip. What's up? Quantum time flip. Fucking hell. Chechia conquers the sun. I'm sorry, did they effectively accomplish fusion? An artificial sun. Compass upgrade tokamak reactor. And they're building themselves in Chechia. And they're getting there. Okay, very good. Whoa, what? Colorado has become the second state to legalize psychedelic drugs wow. For certain use. They've legalized psilocybin, and they've moved to potentially legalize other plant and fungus-based psychedelic drugs for therapeutic use by 2024. Fantastic. That is quite good, especially considering that I am very much in favor of psychedelics for therapeutic purposes used carefully. So regulating them and making them available via prescription or in other ways for the many people who could benefit from them. I'm really quite convinced that a low dose of psilocybin or LSD can actually just save people's lives. Just like immediately, instantly, given the right set and setting, can cause the dissolution of pattern recognition mechanisms and ability to reevaluate the world that can just completely alter people's course. I'm utterly convinced by it now. And I did a lot of listening to what's the guy's name exactly so that I don't give you the wrong name. Dr. Matthew Johnson. Dr. Johnson, Johns Hopkins. Professor of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences, one of the world's most published on psychiatry. Also, a glorious beard, let's be honest. Look at that fucking beard. Look at that boy and his beard. See, this guy's done some drugs. You just know he's done some drugs. You can just tell. In any case, listen to him a bunch. He's doing a lot of research on psilocybin experiences and using them for various things and trying them on various people in a laboratory setting at rather insignificant doses. Well, significant, but rather low doses, all the way up through rather high doses. And, well, they have some interesting fucking effects. And in most cases, those effects are hyper positive. Like, excruciatingly, extraordinarily positive. So that's pretty fucking cool. Manga is vastly different, has lots of fighting to it. Yeah, fair enough. I have seen a lot of interesting things in there. Regarding shonen and seinen, they're not genres, but demographic. No. Okay, Shu, we're going down this pathway. They're both, actually. They are both, actually. The demographic representation of shonen and seinen is not useful, and it's not the way that most people it's not what most people are using when they say it. Shonen and seinen are also genre categorizations. When you say shonen, mostly you don't mean media aimed at young boys. It's not what it means anymore. It's what it meant. It's what it meant, and I agree with that, and it's the functional definition. It's the original definition of the word, but it is not the functional definition of the word. The functional definition of shonen is there's a character, they have some power inside them that is their darkness. It usually came from their mother or their father or some event at their birth. Their parents are usually missing. They have a big goal and a big dream. There's another character in their environment who serves as a foil to them. They don't quite fit into the environment's situation because they're too driven and too weird and too different, and their parental situation is odd, and their whole familial and attachment style is weird and odd. And so, usually the shonen protagonist points at a thing and goes, "I'm gonna do that for the rest of my life until I'm done," and then they do it. That's what shonen means when you say it, as in that's what's interpreted by the brain when people hear it. People don't hear shonen and go, stuff aimed at boys. It's stupid to think of it that way. It's useless to do it that way. That's like saying Pulp Fiction is just a medium, not a genre. Right. It generates a genre. It generates a form of art. And the reason is because of a fundamental truth about media that you must understand. It's from Marshall McLuhan, and it's "the medium is the message." Which is to say, to some extent, no, it has multiple meanings, but it is to say to some extent that the medium and the genre and the categorization and where it's going and what it's for, those determine what kind of art comes through it and how that art is interpreted. The medium is the message. But by that logic, stuff like Noragami and JoJo's are also not shonen, but they are. Correct. JoJo's is shonen, but it's also not shonen. You're correct, it's both. Everything is Venn diagrams, and they're Venn diagrams with blurry borders. If you can't get that blurriness into your head, you're going to have a really hard time. And I'm not saying that you're wrong, except that you're wrong. You're just going to be, because of your wrongness, you're going to have a really hard time evaluating pieces of media forever, for the rest of your life, because categories don't work that way. It doesn't work that way. It's something that's fundamentally accurate and very helpful about the postmodernist critique of categorization and labeling, is that when you categorize things, you exclude, and when you do that, you do so incorrectly always. And so by saying shonen is this, you eliminate a bunch of things that are obviously shonen. It's like, wait, but shonen is this, though. Yeah, well, it's not just that, because the lines are blurry. It's that and other things. But here's the thing. Both JoJo's and Noragami, by the logic that I expressed, are shonen, actually. Each JoJo's character has some weird power passed on to them by their familial line, and they have some usually missing parents, because their parents are, one or the other parent is usually missing, and they're on some kind of a quest to figure out what the fuck is up with that. And they have some power that is a reflection of them, that is also their darkness, and they have to become one with it, and they have to self-actualize with it. And then they meet people in the world who are kind of, there's one person at least who's like a solid foil for them. And then there are a bunch of people that they organize around and figure out. And then they point at a goal and they go, I'm a gangstar, right? And then they do the thing. Because JoJo's is fucking shonen. Not because it's aimed at young boys, but because it follows the same archetypal story beats. You get it? And some parts of JoJo's are more shonen-y than others. I'm saying because of how that blurriness is, it's better to classify it as a No. No, it isn't. Because demographic classifications are useless when you're trying to determine what kinds of shows you want to watch. I'll say it again. Demographic classifications are useless when you're trying to determine what kind of show you want to watch. It's like saying, I want to watch a kid's movie. Fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. You don't want to watch a kid's movie. You want to watch a particular type of story. Right? Right. What about OPM then? What about it? What about it? OPM isn't shonen. It's meta. OPM is critique. So is Mob Psycho in many ways. Mob Psycho is shonen. Which was the better protagonist, you Simone or Kamina? Kamina's not a protagonist. He's a mentor. He's not a protagonist. If you were to rate them side by side on a scale of the 1 to 10 of their show, no, I would rate them on a side by side on a scale to their nekketsu, their flaming spiritness. Their shonenness and their flaming spiritness are separate things. Nekketsu, like that feeling of being on fire, that's part of shonen often, but not always. But that's not the thing. That's not how that works. I would rate them based on their nekketsu-ness. But again, Kamina is not a protagonist. Kamina is a mentor. He's built into the story not to be a protagonistic character. It's not what he's for. It's not his purpose in the story. It's why the story goes the way that it does. I'm attempting not to spoil all of Gurren Lagann. That's why the story goes the way that it does. Because he's not the protagonist. I'm not my bro, right? One of the core lines of Gurren Lagann, I'm not my bro. I'm me. I'm Simone the Digger. Orange says phosphophylito. Right on the money. Foss is absolutely a prototypical protagonist. She is, however, an unwilling protagonist, which makes her interesting. Because she's not really driven until later. She has to get broken a bunch, literally. But she's a Buddhist protagonist in a weird way. She's an Enlightenment style protagonist. It's weird because her goals aren't material. And her mode isn't material. It's time-bound, self-destructive, self-reorganizing, which is quite interesting. I think quite interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just do roll d7. I know there aren't d7s, but I can do it anyway because digital rollers allow that to happen. And I rolled a 7, so I'm going to go for the last one. Ooh, boy. The last one is Ozymandias. By Percy Bysshe. Bysshe? How do I even pronounce that? Such a pretty boy. Bysshe Shelley.
Percy Bysshe Shelley.
Bish, huh? What's up, Bish? Very funny. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. This is on the futility of pride, is how I read this poem, at least. And how many, I think, have read this poem. Let's see what the poem guide says about it. The power of pharaonic Egypt. Archaeological treasures being found. And they remember a historian who describes the statue of Ozymandias. It reports that the inscription is, King of Kings, Ozymandias am I. If any want to know how great I am and where I lie, let him outdo me in my work. The statue was not surviving and was never seen by Shelley. Oof. Smith produced a now-forgotten poem with the unfortunate title, On a Stupendous Leg of Granite, discovered standing by itself in the deserts of Egypt, with the inscription inserted below. And, of course, nobody read that shit because it's a terrible name for a poem. You should have just called it Ozymandias, bro. What are you doing, bro? Boastfulness, gigantic tombs insisting that they are the eighth wonder. The inert fact of the monument displaces the presence of the dead person it commemorates. The proud claim is made on behalf of art, not on the behalf of the deceased. Sorry about that beeping. I don't know what the fuck that is. We encounter the poem like an explorer. Yeah. A shattered visage. A visage taken apart. Torn to pieces. This is good. Look upon my works, ye mighty, in despair, but there are no works to be seen. It's empty. Boundless and bare, lone and level. The challenge here, I actually really... There's... Where's the outdo? There. The inscription that's reported here, if any want to know how great I am and where I lie, let him outdo me in my work, is so interesting. It's like saying, you'll never understand the place that I've reached until you've reached it and outdone it yourself. All you'll do is look upon my works in despair. But interestingly, the place that he's reached is death, and it says true about death, if you outdo him in that, then you will understand. It's as true about that as it is about the work itself. Quite interesting. Really like that poem. It's a hard one. Hi Samyak, I've been well today. Can be male, female, fat, thin, doesn't matter. What matters was if they were willing to be the symbol of a hero that people could rally behind. I believe it. Hi Joaquin, I'm reading through your question. I was the one who put Araragi. I first thought Goku, but then I saw it up and I thought of Araragi. I get where you're coming from, but maybe I'm too dumb to understand. You're not. You're not too dumb to fully understand. I would say this. Monogatari is so complicated, and it's so built upon... Oh, that was the second part of the comment. You missed the first part. What? Where? Oh, the Ryuma. Got it. Okay. Monogatari is so... Yes, I've read a ton of poetry, and I have read that one, Shu. It's quite a poem. I used to own a hard, like a little pamphlet-y copy of it. I don't remember, or maybe it was in a book of other poems or something like that. But I remember having it and reading it physically. Hi, Penguin Outlaw. I'm doing well. I do have a headache. But let me take a second and talk to Joaquin Diaz. So here's what I would say about Monogatari. Shonen, to some extent, but first of all, he's older than shonen. Not he's older than shonen. The ideas that are present are seinen-esque. They're complicated. It's a harem show. Like Monogatari is literally all about romance and girls and sex, and that makes it very different from shonen, because shonen is all about self-determination, and Monogatari is all about determination of others. Araragi only grows in some ways. Mostly Araragi doesn't grow much at all through most of the seasons. It's his relations with others that grow, right? And he grows through those, and I'm not trying to discount those as self-growth either, but it's Araragi's relationship to Senjo Gahara, relationship to Hanakawa, relationship to all of these characters, female mostly, and then, like the couple of male characters that we get, Kaiki, Meme, Mentor, and Snake, and that's kind of it. I could never enjoy harem shows in general, but Monogatari for some reason just hit all, because it's not actually a harem show. It's not actually anything. Monogatari isn't actually a thing. Monogatari is exclusively and entirely criticism and commentary on other things. Does that make sense? Like, Monogatari as a thing does not stand on its own. It is a criticism of all other stories. It's a meta story. It is Campbell's monomyth to general heroic narratives, but for general heroic narratives as well, but mostly for romance. I don't mean that it's a deconstruction, Samyak. I mean that it's a reconstruction. It's different. It's more than a deconstruction. A deconstruction just cuts things up. I think what you're calling shonen is specifically battle shonen, because rom-coms and slice of life can also be shonen. No, you're still coming at it from the direction of it being a demographic categorization. Rom-coms and comedy slice of life are rom-coms and comedy slice of life, not shonen. They might be shonen too, because everything overlaps. And you're right, those things can also be shonen, because it's not exclusive ever. Genres are never exclusive. You can have a sci-fi thriller, and all sci-fi has some elements of thriller, and all thriller has some elements of sci-fi. Almost always. Some rom-com has elements of shonen, some doesn't. Some slice of life has elements of shonen, some doesn't. But shonen, as an archetypal genre categorization, not the demographic, is very useful for talking about a specific form of media, and it's not because there are battles in it. Ping Pong, the animation, is a shonen. It's not a battle shonen, except that it is. There are battles in it, okay? Keijo is a shonen. Yes? Because it's the same format. Yes? Yes. UQ Holder and Negima, they were def shonen with harem and romance thrown in by the spades. Right, fine. These things can overlap at all times. But they're overlapping with the fundamentals of shonen. They don't contain them. Unless the specific show does. And really, you have to go down to the level of the individual show in order to describe the individual show and the individual piece of media and how it functions. Because broad categorization is always exclusionary. It's always ineffective. It's always insufficiently inclusionary and overly exclusionary. Okay, now I have 6 poems. Roll d6. 3. Un, deux, trois. Emily Dickinson. I really like Dickinson. I always have. I think her poems are great. Because I could not stop for death. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. We slowly drove, he knew no haste, and I had put away my labor and my leisure too for his civility. We passed the school where children strove at recess in the ring. We passed the fields of gazing grain, we passed the setting sun. Or rather he passed us, the dews drew quivering and chill, for only gossamer my gown, my tippet, only tulle. Tulle? Tulle. We passed before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground. Since then 'tis centuries, and yet feels shorter than the day I first surmised the horse's heads were toward eternity. Eternity! Thank you, death. So death stopped for me and allowed me to pass through all these things. It's a fun poem. It's a fun one. Okay, so let me explain what I want to say. Shonen rom-coms and shoujo rom-coms have different kinds of stories and focus on different aspects of right. So it's not that useful to distinguish them, because all you need to do is to take the two categories and overlap them, right? I'm in no way being exclusive around rom-coms having the aspects of shonens or vice versa. In no way exclusionary, or shoujo's having or having the aspects of shoujo or vice versa. There's no exclusivity there. That's why the lines are blurry. I get that they're different kinds of stories, but that's the difference created by the smashing together of two separate genre categories. Oops, I don't want to unpin that from my taskbar. Roll d5. One. Oh boy. Rudyard Kipling we go. Fucking hell. This one's a hard one for me, because it tells you exactly what you need to be doing and how hard it is. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise, if you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, fucking hate that shit, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop to build them up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings, and risk it all one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you, except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Couple lines stand out here immensely. If you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, is fantastic, because it's exactly what I deal with on a daily goddamn basis, is people misinterpreting, sometimes maliciously and intentionally, my words in order to paint a particular picture and to project a particular viewpoint onto me and my viewpoint. And it hurts immensely, but I can bear it. If I couldn't, I would stop speaking, and I'm not going to stop speaking. This as well, about risking all of your winnings, all of the things that everywhere that you've come from, everything that you've built so far, you risk it all, and you risk losing it all. And you're willing, if you've risked it all, if you've lost it all, to start again from scratch. In a way, that's like the removal of the early access from the Patreon, is I've built all this stuff, I'm going to risk it all on the gamble that doing this is going to be more ethical and effective long term. And we'll see. And if it doesn't work, I'm not going to fucking whine about it. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue is fascinating to me, because speakers with crowds get corrupted by the crowd. And you can chart them. Some of the most evil, heinous, and awful leaders didn't exactly start out that way. They became that way after interacting directly with crowds and discovering that the people, the mass, the mob, is angry and cruel and vengeful and hurtful and destructive. So, talk with crowds and keep your virtue. Or walk with things, nor lose the common touch. We see this all the time. People get rich and forget where they came from all the time. You see it in young rappers all the time. They get a little bit of money and suddenly it's chains and grills and Supreme clothes and going to UFC bouts and showing off, buying cars that they can't afford, mansions, expensive alcohols, expensive weed, expensive drugs, expensive things of any kind. They just start buying them. Getting gems engraved into their foreheads, this stupid shit. And they're forgetting that common touch, where they've come from, who they really are. Walk with kings, nor lose the common touch. I've walked with some kings, in a way. What I mean by that is some powerful people. Extraordinarily wealthy, extraordinarily well-adjusted, well-educated, powerful people. People who are on track to becoming high-end doctors and lawyers. People who are at the level of Ivy League students, going places, truly wealthy and powerful people. And also people who have made it there by their own volition and strength, people who are working in industry in Silicon Valley, who are creating and generating their own kingdoms. And a lot of them lose the common touch, too. It's hard not to. We're affected so dramatically by our surroundings, by our location, our environment. If you walk around in castles and cathedrals, you start to think like somebody who walks around in castles and cathedrals. And that can be a dangerous thing, because sometimes you want to think like a human being who was born of dirt and dust and pain and blood. And sometimes you need that instead. And then this line. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run. This is a perfect explanation of utilization of time. The minute is unforgiving. It happens no matter what. What you fill it with is your choice. It's like the idea of you get to choose your suffering. You can spend that minute doing nothing, and you will suffer for it. And you can spend that minute running, and you will suffer for it. It's no easy path. It's not like, oh, all you have to do is work really hard and that'll make your life so much nicer. It's like, no, it makes it about the same amount of difficult, except that it does make it so much nicer, because something about choosing, something about orienting yourself intentionally toward that suffering and choosing it changes us. Fascinating. I'm going to remove the red wheelbarrow because it's cool, but, Burning the heretics that disagree with their classifications. I hope you're not annoyed by me. Nope. Would you consider MT Shonen or Isekai something different? Both. Can't you equally choose to do nothing? Yes, and sometimes you should. But that's what I'm saying. You can choose to do nothing. At any point, you can choose to not do anything, and your life will fall apart. Because action is the nature of your being. If you choose to do nothing, if you choose to not improve, if you choose to laze on the couch and sleep all day, you can do that. Just get ready, because the suffering that you're going to experience is going to be way harder than you thought. When you take the easy road, when you sleep a bunch, when you do nothing a bunch, when you sit around and avoid the things that you need to do, misery knocks upon your door. And it waits. And it waits. And it slips in through the cracks. And you can't stave it off through more rest, through more calm, through more quiet, through more indulgence either. We do need a balance of action and inaction, though. I think being calm and still can be good. 100%. That's why everybody should have a meditation practice. You should be fully capable of two primary things, and both of them have to do with limbic friction. When you are feeling calm, relaxed, tired, sleepy, inactive, immobile, you need the capacity to self-generate adrenaline and turn yourself into a bullet and turn yourself into action, to go from the sleepiest state to forceful wakefulness. And equally important, when you are riled up, anxious, overwhelmed, wrathful, lusty, overwhelmed by any of these emotional states that have you seeking and moving and right? You need the physical and psychological ability to calm yourself into a slower state. Both are crucial. Hold on. Hello? For what purpose? Yep. Bye. A fucking bye. A fucking bye. Brian, Life of Brian, was great at talking to the crowds. In no way was he influenced, even if it didn't end well for him. Well, but Brian with Life and Brian of Brian is a very, very funny story. I'm gonna leave the JP stuff be completely. Another Nigerian prince? No. Just collectors. Just the classic. From there, I'm gonna go, because I was just talking about taking different paths and taking the more difficult path as opposed to the easier one. I'll go immediately from there to The Road Not Taken, which is one of the greatest poems of all time, as are all of the poems that we've read today. These are some of the greatest works of literature ever. Ever. And you can just access them. They're free. There are 100 of different copies of them all over the place. The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So a man comes to a fork in a road, and knowing that he often, though he might, that often one never returns to the same place, that by walking down a road one chooses the path, and you can't go back and unchoose. Looking at the two paths, one taken by more footsteps, the other not. Neither taken by anyone today, but one obviously more traveled than the other. He kept the first for another day, and chose the road less traveled, and it made all the difference. Bingo. Let's see what the poem guide says. Hey, Robbie Frosty. Oh, it was a joke for a friend. I'm never more serious than when I am joking. The dilemma, yellow leaves. One forest replacing another. Imagines staving off the choice for a while, avoiding choosing. And that's a classic temptation as well, is to stay stagnant in the middle of the road and avoid choosing forever. see this a lot in young people. You see, I was like this in college. I never wanted to choose a major because doing so would mean eliminating all the other choices. And that's always true about most choices, is that you choose a path and you eliminate all the other potential paths. There's an opportunity cost to everything. And that can be very tempting to just stay still because of that. Because it's like, no, but I'm sacrificing too much. How horrible. Yeah, but you have to choose. Because if you stop moving, you die. Because you are a thing of movement. It's less traveled, but even so, they are comparable. And each is carpeted in leaves. But what he's admitting is that perhaps there's no real reason why one is more important than the other. So the idea, the choice, comes out of his own value judgment, his own evaluation more than anything. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I like this too, a riddling, ironic meditation on how we turn bewilderment and impulsiveness into a narrative. You explain at the end why you did the things that you did. Something that I've said a few times. I think people act out of impulse and then backward justify and say, well, I did that because blank, 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 blank. But that isn't actually articulate when they do it, and it might not even be true, which is quite good, quite useful. I want to start reading Nietzsche. Any recommendations on where to start? Apparently he wrote a lot of poems too. Look for it. See which of his books you'd like to read. Beyond Good and Evil is pretty great. I picked up on the genealogy of morals instead because it was what I was most interested in at the time. But probably Beyond Good and Evil is the prototypical text. On the genealogy of morals is one of the more, as far as I know, one of the more coherent and complete writings of Nietzsche, in that it's quite small and quite concise, in that it contains many of the other ideas. Timo says, "Hey, I got the book framed ink today. Excited to learn from it. I'm excited to hear your comments and stuff. Very glad. I really, 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 really like that book." Okay, and then we'll do The Wasteland, and then we'll do Still I Rise. T.S. Oh boy, this is actually far longer than I expected. Never mind, I will not read T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland. This is way longer than I want to deal with right now, and so we will skip it. Sorry, T.S. Eliot. It is a beautiful poem. Beyond Good and Evil, the book, not the game. Well, maybe the game would work. I don't know. Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. Beautiful soul. Beautiful soul of a person. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hopes springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Now, obviously, the poem is in many ways about being black and female, both things that I am not. But through the power of the poetry, I can understand a little bit of the perspective of a person who is. And that is human-driven magic right there. That's the power of word. Very rarely do I hear anyone describe someone as a beautiful soul. I hear it sometimes, but yeah, it's not terribly frequent. Which is a shame, because it's a great way of referring to someone's transcendent value, as opposed perhaps to their material value or their physical beauty or any of those things. Israel Kamakawiwo Ole is fantastic, and that man could sing like nobody the fuck else. Just exceptional, you know? Oh. My mom would listen to her often on the radio. IZ was a fantastic singer and a Hawaiian national treasure. Indeed. Just discovered that my phone might update to Android 12, which would be very nice. I think Maya Angelou is fantastic. What am I looking for? Updates. Update center. System update. Oh, I already have 12. Okay. Great. You taking anything for your headache or just hoping it will pass the time? Some caffeine, some food. It's not really getting better. I don't want to take a painkiller. It's not bad. It's a little bit better. Now, it does still hurt to move my head around. It's like my brain is shaking in its cage. One sec. Ugh. Oh, shoot. So let me go at Shonen Protagonists and see if anything interesting has popped up. Misaka Mikoto. Sure, fair enough. Shinji Ikari. I think it. I believe it. He is pretty prototypical. Edward Elric. Good choice. I believe it. Tanjiro up at the top still. I like that, yeah. As far as a modern, simple shonen protagonist goes, Tanjiro is exactly right? He's got this horrible family thing that happens, loss of the parents, a thing to save, a goal beyond goals, which is to turn Nezuko back, right? Tanjiro doesn't have specifically a foil. He's got that sort of as the two boyos who are with him. He doesn't have like a rival, at least to where I am in the story. But maybe I'm incorrect about that. I could see there being many options for rival characters, especially amongst the hunters. But of course he's got an enemy and a villain and a goal, and that's pretty great. I really like Demon Slayer. I like it a lot. Evangelion is shonen. I didn't say that. Shinji is a shonen protagonist. Evangelion, I did not say is shonen. However, Evangelion is absolutely shonen. However, it's also meta shonen because it's commentary. Have you ever heard of any stuff from Kabir, a 13th, 14th century Indian poet? I searched for the crooked man, met not a single one, then searched myself. I found the crooked one. Cool. I prefer female protagonists over males in shows. I find they tend to come with better storylines and less cliches. Totally depends on the show. There are a lot of female protagonists who are nothing but cliches and shitty stories. Fully depends on the show. I do think that the female protagonist is, in some ways, the more effective articulation because of the containingness, but it depends on the story entirely. Simone's story doesn't work unless he's phallic. Like, Ryuko can't be the protagonist of Gurren Lagann. You can't have a female protagonist in Gurren Lagann. You cannot, because Gurren Lagann is a male story, specifically and directly. It is a story. Who's the worst shonen protagonist? It's irrelevant. An impossible question. All of them. All of the ones that aren't the best ones are shitty. It's an irrelevant question. Yours is the drill that will pierce the heavens is a literally masculine narrative. It's literally male. It's a dick. The drill is a PP. It's a penis. It's a phallus. Literally. Piercing the heavens is about piercing the heavens. Literally. Literally. I always see Kirito, but Kirito's a great protagonist. People are assholes and fools. And it's like, Kirito's shitty and cliche, but he's a great protagonist. It's quite effective. As far as a relatable idiot who's useless and exists in a digitized world, Kirito's quite effective. There's a reason everybody resonates with him. I hate the main from Excel World by the same author. Yeah, that guy kind of sucks too. But the reason that he sucks is because the reason that he sucks is so that he can grow, and it works actually pretty effectively. And a lot of people do vibe with Excel World, especially when they come from a place where they're fat and ugly and think of themselves as a pig. They vibe with Excel World pretty hard. I see it pretty frequently. So it's an inarticulate myth and a youthful one, but some people need inarticulate myths because their brains aren't ordered properly enough to accept and understand more complicated mythologies. I don't think that you can just start by showing somebody something as complex as Evangelion and being like, these are good protagonists, and they'll just be like, what the fuck is that? They need some stupid shit first. Freud strikes again, piercing the heavens. Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's phallic. It's a penis. It's a penis. The whole thing that Gurren Lagann does is drills. It's about moving forward. It's about pushing forward. It's about striving. Those are, in general, now it doesn't mean that they're not traits that are found in females, but they're philosophically or psychologically masculine traits. Not that they should be, or maybe they should be, but we should recognize in every way that everyone contains at least a large portion of them is that masculine or forward moving or pierce the heavensy sort of fucking energy. It's that fuck energy. It's that energy to fuck. And it's actually testosterone. It's actually what the chemical compound testosterone does in you. That's what I mean by masculine. It's literally what the physical compound does in you, is make you wanna pursue and organize and choose. It's what it physically does. Yoko could have a secret drill in her pants too. That is irrelevant. I know you're joking, but it's irrelevant. Because she's fully female and is there as an object for until much later in the story. She's there as an object for Simone to bounce off of and not understand, not comprehend as a person, which is part of the issue of the young masculine, is that you don't understand the feminine at all and you just want to drill her. And it's like, that's not the way, man. You got to incorporate the feminine into your drill. And that's why when he meets what's her face, she comes in and she sits in the cockpit with him. Because they're in the pilot's chair together, and so they drill the world together. So by effectively integrating the masculine and the feminine, the two sides of the spiral, the drill actually can move forward. You know, it's really fucking complicated. It's like, and then they separate that idea out into the scissor for Ryuko, because it's two halves, half and half, and it's only when you align the two, which is to say align the mother and the father, or the nurturing spirit and the creating, protecting spirit, or the nurturing, creating spirit and the protecting, driving spirit, which is to say the feminine spirit and the masculine spirit. Divine feminine, divine masculine. Not literally maleness. I'm not talking about sex. I'm talking about hormones, and I'm talking about traits, and I'm talking about broad-scale personas that exist in all of us, because all of us have masculinity and femininity within us to some degree, differentiated. Whenever I hear people say Freud was wrong, well, he's the fundamentals of psychotherapy. People are idiots. And most of the people who say anything about Freud have never read any. Let alone have they read any of the people who've criticized Freud. Let alone have they read Freud's students in Jung, or Jung's students in Neumann. He was off about his stuff as Darwin might have been about evolution, which is to say he had something interesting to say with importance. Freud wasn't off about much. Freud was just a little bit obsessed, and most of what Freud failed at was pointing at the thing and saying, this thing is true, and the fact that it's true explains everything. And so he tried to fit everything to the perceptual framework that he created. The perceptual framework that he created, or the representative framework that he created, is broadly correct, but not everything fits in it, and it's not broad enough to fit everything. Does that make sense? Like, Freud was in very few ways wrong. In very many ways, he wasn't right enough. Does that make sense? In the same way, Darwin was almost 100% correct, because he was a scientist, right? So he put down his observations, and so those observations were correct. His inferences were also almost entirely correct. They just don't explain all of the variation and all of the power. It's like Darwin was correct in almost every way when it comes to natural selection and speciation. And Freud, likewise, was correct in almost every way. The idea that psychopathy and pathology is almost always rooted in the family or the earliest moments of a child's life, true. That they're almost always related to sexual representations is doubly true, because we've actually learned that neurobiologically we reuse the same patterns of attachment that we use on our parents, on our parents, in order to use those same patterns for representing other core relationships in our lives. So it's like, why do people seek out people to date and fuck that are like their parents? Well, the answer is because they use the same patterned systems in order to seek attachment behaviors. So they do exactly the same thing. So they seek out people who fit those patterns. And you have to very consciously go against that. Otherwise, you will slip into finding people who are just like your parents. And what you actually want is people who are exactly opposite to you in as many ways as possible. We know more about how it works than what Darwin theorized, but what I'm saying is, like, Darwin wasn't really that off, and Freud wasn't really that off either. I think we're in agreement. We know a lot more. That's exactly it. The framework that Darwin presented was correct. We've just expanded it. The framework that Freud presented is also largely correct. We've just expanded it immensely. Like, immensely. You know, Freud didn't fully understand dream. It's one of Jung's primary criticisms of Freud. I'll just grab it. Hold on. I'll just grab it. I can just find the page pretty quickly. It's only a few pages back from where I am. Hmm. Well, here we go. It is against this background that we must review the importance of dreams, those flimsy, evasive, unreliable, vague, and uncertain fantasies. To explain my point of view, I would like to describe how it developed over a period of years and how it was led to conclude that dreams are the most frequent and universally accessible source for the investigation of man's symbolizing faculty. Sigmund Freud was the pioneer who first tried to explore empirically the unconscious background of consciousness. He worked on the general assumption that dreams are not a matter of chance, but are associated with conscious thoughts and problems. This assumption was not in the least arbitrary. It was based upon the conclusion of eminent neurologists, for example, Pierre Janet, that neurotic symptoms are related to some conscious experience. They may even appear to be split off. They even appear to be split off areas of the conscious mind, which at another time and under different conditions can be conscious. Neurotic symptoms are symbolically meaningful. A patient who is they are in one way in which the unconscious mind expresses itself, just as it may in dreams, and they are equally symbolic. A patient, for instance, who is confronted with an intolerable situation may develop a spasm whenever he tries to swallow. He can't swallow it. Under similar conditions of psychological stress, another patient has an attack of asthma. He can't breathe the atmosphere at home. I could cite many examples of this kind, but such physical reactions are only one form in which the problems that trouble us unconsciously may express themselves. Any psychologist who has listened to numbers of people describing their dreams knows that dream symbols have much greater variety than the physical symptoms of neurosis. They often consist of elaborate and picturesque fantasies. But if the analyst who is confronted by this dream material uses Freud's original technique of free association, he finds that dreams can eventually be reduced to certain basic patterns. This technique played an important part in the development of psychoanalysis, for it enabled Freud to use dreams as the starting point from which the unconscious problem of the patient might be explored. Freud made the simple but penetrating observation that if a dreamer is encouraged to go on talking about his dream images and the thoughts and these prompt in his mind, and the thoughts that these prompt in his mind, he will give himself away and reveal the unconscious background of his ailments in both what he says and in what he deliberately omits saying. His ideas may seem irrational and irrelevant, but after a time it becomes relatively easy to see what it is that he was trying to avoid, what unpleasant thought or experience he is suppressing. No matter how he tries to camouflage it, everything he says points to the core of his predicament. Freud attached particular importance to dreams as the point of departure for a process of free association, but after a time I began to feel that this was a misleading and inadequate use of the rich fantasies that the unconscious produces in sleep. My doubts really began when a colleague told me of an experience he had during the course of a long train journey in Russia. Though he did not know the language and could not even decipher the Cyrillic script, he found himself musing over the strange letters in which the railway notices were written, and he fell into a reverie. One idea led to another, and in his relaxed mood he found that this free association had stirred up many old memories. Among them was a topic. Among them, he was annoyed to find some long-buried disagreeable topics, things he had wished to forget and had forgotten consciously. He had, in fact, arrived at what psychologists would call his complexes, that is, repressed emotional themes that can cause constant psychological disturbances or even, in many cases, the symptoms of neurosis. This opened my eyes to the fact that it was not necessary to use a dream as the point of departure for the process of free association if one wished to discover the complexes of a patient. One can reach the center directly from any point in the compass. One could begin with Cyrillic letters, meditations on a crystal ball, a prayer wheel, or a modern painting, or even a casual conversation about some trivial event. The dream was no more and no less useful in this respect than any other possible starting point. Nevertheless, dreams have a particular significance, even though they often arise from the emotional upset in which the habitual complexes are also involved. That is why free association can lead one from any dream to the critical secret thought. And so it occurred to me that it might reasonably follow that dreams have some special and significant function of their own. I therefore began to consider whether one should pay more attention to the actual form and content of a dream rather than allowing free association to lead one off through a train of ideas to complexes that could as easily be reached by other means. Perhaps I have said enough to show how I came increasingly to disagree with free association as Freud first employed it. I wanted to keep as close as possible to the dream itself and to exclude all the irrelevant ideas and associations that it might evoke. So the idea that Jung presents is that Freud was near obsessed with free association as a process, and that isn't good enough because using dreams as a starting point for free association doesn't reveal the inherently interesting things about dreams. It's just a starting point, and anything else could work as a starting point symbolically. Dreams are special, says Jung. They're different. They're unique. There's something crucially important and entirely different. And there are real values to the patterns of representation that we use within those dreams, which is very, very good. Very, very cool. Isaac Newton was better with gravity. Nobody has proved gravity wrong to me yet. Been watching Americans react to Al Murray videos, and in one he says the British invented gravity, and so far not seen a single American understand the joke. Very good. Oh, what is it? Is it Kunk? It is Kunk on something. Okay. I think these are on YouTube, so I'm gonna watch one. Kunk on. Kunk on Earth. Moments of Wonder, Time. Moments of Wonder, Crime. Most hilarious interviews. Kunk on Shakespeare. I might want to do Kunk on Shakespeare. Kunk on Earth is pretty great, but Kunk on Shakespeare sounds amazing. Had 2 or 3 lucid dreams. They were nice. That's good, man. Okay, we're gonna watch this in a second. I'm gonna go use the bathroom right now, and I'll be back in a second. Peace. 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 Ow. Live streaming. There we go. Cats in my dream are not like cats in a dream of people who is allergic to cats. Okay. Do you ever try to lucid dream, actively control your dream? Yeah, I've never been able to. I have such incredible and vivid dreams with great storylines, and all it does is make me not want to get out of bed. That is rough. All you got to do if you want to ruin your ability to REM sleep is take some cannabis. I don't know what stolines are. Yeah, I don't know what those are. Maybe not the right word. Okay, well, I'm gonna watch Kunk on Shakespeare because it's hilarious. Probably
400 years ago this year, the world-famous playwright William Shakespeare stopped happening. I've been studying Shakespeare ever since I was asked to do this programme, and it turns out he's more than just a bald man who could write with feathers. And the story of whether he was the best at writing ever is more interesting than you'd imagine.
But why do we still talk about Shakespeare? We don't talk about Les Dennis anymore, even though he's still alive
What is
and
that?
hasn't done anything wrong. Did Shakespeare write nothing but boring gibberish with no relevance to our modern world of Tinder and peri-peri fries? Or does it just look, sound and feel that way? That's what I'm going on a journey to find out about.
Along the way, I'll probe Shakespeare's life, study his complete works, and
Anus.
speak to Shakespearean experts and actors.
They're so
Do you
mad.
just learn the famous bits, like to be or not to be? Or do you learn all the bits in between as well?
I have to learn all the bits in between.
Are you fucking joking?
No. I mean, it's big, but it takes a bit of time.
Shut up.
So join me, Philomena Conk, as I go on a journey all the way into William Bartholomew
Is Cyberpunk coming out
Shakespeare,
today? Probably
the
not.
man they call the King of the Bards.
Probably not. Considering how late it is now and the fact that I have still a fucking headache.
Deep below Stratford-on-Avon, in a secret location on Henley Street, is a treasure trove of Shakespearean proportions. It's really old.
It is. So this book dates from 1600, and it has the records that go back to 1558.
Just gonna spit on it.
It's sort of written on the front, Stratford-upon-Avon.
It's a bit wonky, isn't it? Like I suppose they didn't have rulers, did they?
It's a very old book that's sort of made from animal skin, and then if I just use the
It's
weights
sort
to
of
keep
like
the...
waxy A4 paper, isn't it?
It is a little bit waxy, yeah. That's the sort of the
That's the juices of the animals.
coming out, yeah. And this is the page where we have Shakespeare's baptism recorded, and then it's written in Latin.
What
the
does that say?
inscription. This baptism record is for William, the son of John Shakespeare.
This is a bit like Who Do You Think You Are, isn't it?
It is in a way, yeah. These, you know, if you're tracing your family history, these are the records that will give you the information.
Bro,
you
we
need.
watching
But
Kong
he'd sort of
today?
call it,
Just a little
Who
bit.
doth thou thinkest thou art?
He might, yeah.
And he'd
yeah.
go like that.
He may well have done, yeah.
Flourish.
You go like that.
This is the actual house in which Shakespeare was born. Here
Nah, bro,
on
we
our
watching Kong
planet
today?
Earth.
Just a little bit.
As a baby, Shakespeare showed few
the one she
signs
did on
of
architecture.
becoming the most significant figure in literary history. So nobody bothered noting down the details of his life. That's why we can't be sure about his date of birth and don't know anything about his childhood, except that he probably had one. Otherwise, he'd never have become a grown-up.
The facts may be hazy, but we can probably guess that Shakespeare as a boy would have looked much like boys today, but bald, and with a ruff instead of an Angry Birds t-shirt. This is the actual school he probably went to. School in Shakespeare's day and age was vastly different to our own. In fact, it was far easier because he didn't have to study Shakespeare. At the age of 18, Shakespeare married his teenage sweetheart, Anne Hathaway. But when did Shakespeare stop mooning about with his wife and start doing plays?
We don't exactly know
Her
because
fucking face.
what happened next was Shakespeare's lost years.
We don't know what happened during the lost years. Shakespeare probably spent a lot of his time staring wistfully out of leaded windows and pretending to think, and then write things down with a feather pen.
But we do know he eventually came to London, just like his most famous character, Dick Whittington.
Almost immediately, he began
like
to
that's
make
not
waves
correct,
in the world
Conk.
of theatre.
It's hard to believe today, but back then, people really did go to the theatre on purpose.
Wow.
And they went to see something called plays.
In plays, things happen in front of you, but at actual size, unlike television, which is smaller, or cinema, which is bigger.
You'd think that would make plays the most realistic form of entertainment in existence, but instead, they're nothing like real life at all. And that's because everyone shouts.
Speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounced it to you, trippingly on the tongue.
Not proper shouting, like when a bus won't let you on, or shouting because of an emotion.
Wait,
In
wasn't he
plays,
gay or am I
people-
connection? Connection. There we go.
Discontent, made glorious summer by this son of York.
We few. We happy few.
We're happy for you.
We band of brothers. To be or not to be. That is the question.
Shakespeare actually invented 7 different genres of play: tragedy, fantasy,
Wait.
romance, comedy, horror, and historical. And Shakespearean. Throughout this programme, I'm going to be taking a look at each genre in turn, in a sort of format point thing.
Yeah, that was
they're
my
making me
connection.
do. We'll start with horror.
Oh, okay.
Popular entertainment in
But Bev?
Shakespeare's day was often unpleasant, involving public humiliation and mindless cruelty to animals, with no ant and deck to take the edge off it all. This brutality was reflected in some of Shakespeare's most horriblest plays. For instance, his early work, Titus and Monachus, is so jam-packed with violence and murder, it's basically a posh Friday the 13th. Here we see Titus himself slitting the throats of his enemy sons, while his daughter collects their blood. All of it occurring in front of a horrified Harry Potter. Graphic scenes like this were considered shocking, even in Shakespeare's day, which is quite an achievement.
Foil,
considering
arms,
people
and
used to
hog,
shit
an
out their
Englishman
own
plays
windows back
Risk.
then. But shitting out the
Immediately, I'm intrigued.
is so jam-packed with violence.
Oops. And hog, Englishman plays Risk.
All right, game of Risk. Who goes first?
I believe it's my turn.
All right.
I think I will invade India.
What? Again? You really want to go through this again?
Oh,
Seriously?
not there.
You never change.
Whoa.
He never changes.
Whoa.
I'll invade Ireland.
Really?
Again. Yep. Good point.
Always the same with this guy.
I will invade Hong Kong, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, Australia, Egypt. I will probably skip my turn.
All right, who's next? Boys, I'm going in the Middle East.
Typical.
No, that's not how the game works. You need to be beside the country you're attacking.
Yep. You just try and stop me, son.
Hey, wait a second. Whose troops are these in the Ukraine?
What troops? I don't see any troops.
Dimitri, are these yours?
I don't know what you're talking about.
We know they're yours.
I know nothing.
All right, boys, I'm pulling my troops out of the Middle East.
Hey, no, you can't just take your troops out whenever you want.
Yeah,
I'm
you
not
can.
aware of that.
Jesus Christ. Okay, Germany, your go.
Oh, nein, danke, I'm not playing.
Yeah.
I get way too competitive.
Yeah, we
Bring
know.
out the worst in me. Okay, it's my turn. I want to invade Hispania.
Wait, you want to invade Spain?
See,
I thought you were Spain.
I am not a Spanish. I am a Catalan.
Hey, hold
Exactly
on. What are
right.
your troops in the middle of the ocean?
Oh, they're not. No, that's Gibraltar. And they're the Falklands.
Oh.
I just assumed they were mine.
Nobody wants them.
Sorry, is that weird?
Oh, it's Scandinavia, your go.
Okay, I'm thinking I'm going to raid Ireland.
You mean invade?
No, I mean pillage and plunder.
Just gonna go steal all their
What's going on?
shit.
You're only meant to start with 30 pieces.
Wait, Bucci.
And Switzerland, where's your army?
Oh, I do not have one.
What the hell are you meant to play the game?
I thought we were playing Monopoly.
I just got all the banking and chocolate, man.
India.
That's America. India's the other way, you bloody moron. Oh, every bloody time with this guy.
Whose turn is it now?
Yeah, sure. I will invade Africa. Count me in.
You go.
Me too.
Africa.
Africa.
Africa?
And while you are in
Africa.
Africa, I will invade Europe.
Right, that's it.
Wait,
Finish up.
Russia?
Time for bed.
Fuck.
Oh, Mom, we're nearly finished.
Will you come off? You've been at that for centuries.
Oh.
Doomed up.
Hi, we're Foil Arms and Hog. Thanks a million for watching. We have a new video every
Excellent.
The window wasn't all
Excellent,
fun.
exceptional, thank
it
you.
encouraged rats who carried a devastating illness called the bionic plague. The plague killed about
bionic
10,000
plague!
people in London, and when they'd finished coughing, the survivors needed cheering up. And luckily, Shakespeare had just invented a new type of play called a comedy. Some of Shakespeare's most successful plays were comedies. Critics say his comedies aren't very funny, but to be fair, that's only because jokes hadn't been invented back then. Of course, if you go to watch a Shakespeare comedy
A bionicle
today,
plague sounds
you'll
terrible.
hear the audience laughing as though there are jokes in it, even though there definitely aren't. That's how clever Shakespeare is. Even at this early stage of his career, there was no doubt that Shakespeare was the best
reconstructed
at writing
globe.
plays. But there was enough doubt that he had to start his own theatre company.
I've
to
studied the
put
layout
them
of
on.
that theater a lot because
He
I built
also
my theater
built
for my
the Globe
D&D game
Theatre
after it.
from old bits of another theatre, inventing upcycling. And he probably made the word up as well. He was a better playwright than he was an architect. That's why he didn't put a roof on it. But to be fair, Wimbledon didn't get a roof until a few years ago. If you've never seen Shakespeare at the Globe, imagine a 3-hour YouTube clip happening outdoors, a long way from you, in a language you barely understand. And if I find it confusing, it must have blown the minds off some of Shakespeare's first audiences, who were only slightly more sophisticated than trees. They might have been thick, but Shakespeare's audiences had loads of fun, heckling the actors and
could stand around the theatre here.
Disconnected again. Reconnected again, okay.
Do they wear tunics and have mud on their faces?
The audiences ranged from the ordinary
Stratford-upon-Avon
common
is
people
a pretty
who
town.
would
Cool.
stand around the theatre here, and then they would range to the aristocrats who would sit at the top of the theatre.
Right, so some of them had to stand up, they didn't have chairs.
No. No, they'd be standing.
I've never had to stand for a whole Shakespeare. I don't think I could do it. I'd be livid if I didn't have a chair.
I think the audiences quite enjoy it. I mean, particularly now.
I don't think they do enjoy standing, do they?
They actually enjoy the experience of standing.
Who's
They actually
told you
do.
that? Shakespeare's works are still performed now.
How do you
and
know
not just in
exactly?
theatres. There are
Fucking
countless
horrifying.
different ways of interpreting Shakespeare's plays. There's
She's really the
properly,
worst.
with all wooden furniture and beards and swords and people dressed up as two-legged pageants.
Properly.
Or there's modern, worthy-speaking Shakespearean gobbledygook while dressed in contemporary clothing, a bit like Russell Brand.
You dissentious rogues that rubbing the poor itch of your opinion make yourselves scabs.
And there's
Just like Russell
startlingly
Brand.
avant-garde productions, which look and sound like this.
Now, now, Spirit. Whither wander you?
Incredibly, even today people actually go to see this sort of thing, despite it being completely fucking unwatchable.
It looks pretty fucking watchable to me. I just need enough
People
drugs.
come to see Shakespeare today. Is it
I just gotta be
mainly
on the
people who
level,
wear
man.
glasses?
Yeah, I'm sure there are a few people that wear glasses that come to see it. Yeah, I think all
Original
kinds of
Sacha
people
Baron
come
Cohen
to
mixed with
But a lot
Catherine
of
Tate.
short-sighted people.
Right on the money.
Possibly. Not a lot, though.
Yeah, loads, loads. I was looking around. About 80% of the audience are wearing glasses.
I doubt that.
You're saying I'm a liar?
No, I just said I doubt that 80% of the audience were wearing glasses.
I think they were.
Right.
Maybe
Right,
I need like a
okay
big
then.
bifocal lens in front of the stage. Leave your glasses at home. Come to the theatre.
What about those people that aren't short-sighted?
Oh yeah, it'd be different. You need different lenses, don't you?
Yeah, you need glasses, you
Shakespeare's just
fucking
popular
idiot.
Today as he's always been. There's even a Royal Shakespeare Company named after him who insist on putting on his shows, whether people want them or not. What is it about Shakespeare that makes them bother? Perhaps it's because he wrote about universal human needs, like wanting to murder a king or have a romance. We don't know much about how love and romance worked in olden times, because back then people didn't write blogs about their dating misadventures. But thanks to Shakespeare, what
They
we do
sure
have
did.
is Romeo and Juliet, easily the finest romance of the pre-Dirty Dancing era. Romeo and Juliet
Very
is
good,
about
Paul.
these two rich, powerful families who hate each other. These two families are the Montagues, who sound quite posh, and the Capulets, who invented the headache tablet. They're perfectly happy having their feud until the touching moment Romeo from one side spots Juliet from the other. It's love at first sight, but from a distance, just like on Tinder.
My lips, two blushing pilgrims, ready stand to smooth that rough touch with a tender kiss.
Soon Romeo and Juliet are in love, even
Banging.
though they come from two different families,
Slanging
which is
and
how
banging.
we know it isn't set in Norfolk.
Oh, Romeo, Romeo,
Wherefore art thou,
wherefore
Romeo?
art thou, Romeo?
To find out more about Romeo and Juliet, I went to talk to Shakespearean expert Stanley Wells. Why do you think Romeo and Juliet
Copyrighted audio and
is
video. From the
most
movie?
successful rom-com of all time?
Well, it's very beautiful, isn't it? The love story between Romeo and Juliet. It has some very beautiful poetry in it.
Yeah, 16 and 13, which was
Oh,
utterly
they
normal
like
for,
happy,
for marriage
yeah,
and
but they
sexual
don't get it, of
age at
course,
the
yeah.
time. Utterly normal.
You know, the ending, they die. I mean, you know, the lovers, Romeo and Juliet, I mean.
They die at the end.
Oh,
I don't think
yes,
it gets
Juliet
quickly ignored at
poisons
all. People bring it
herself.
up all the time. In fact, people bring it up constantly. As though it detracts from the story in some way. No, well, okay, but what I'm saying is, yet that gets quickly ignored nowadays. Just barely taught in school. I disagree. I don't think that's true. I think that's not true. It says stream is temporarily blocked because of policy. What the fuck? Which copyrighted audio did I use? What are you talking about?